Welcome to your inner power activation session. Now, would you like to be much happier, much more of the time? And would you like to have a lot more success as a result? Now, how about more loving relationships, more physical energy, greater physical health, more confidence? If you said yes, please pay attention. Now, you might wonder, how could one session, one training, have such a big impact on all these various different aspects of your life? Well, the only way that it could have that type of impact is that if the one thing is actually responsible for all of these things. Now, what if you could get to the source of what causes more or less inner peace, more or less success, greater or worse health, better or worse relationships, a better or worse mindset and mental health? Now, in this session, we will get to the root of it all. So I welcome you to your activation of inner power. First, I want to thank you for joining this program, for being here, because in my experience, our time, our attention is truly our greatest commodity. Now, I know people are so busy. There are so many things that are calling for our attention that we can very easily distract ourselves with. So congratulations for showing up, for investing, and for investing your time. And I promise you to give you my very best so that this session is absolutely worthy every second of your time and your energy. Now, are you willing to be open to something new? Something that could radically improve the quality of your life? I hope you said yes. If so, great. If you said no, I've probably heard this before, then that's a clue that you really need to pay very close attention, because that voice in your head is what this training is all about. And guys, I'm not a speaker. This is not a webinar. This is a training. And my job is to transfer information in such a way that it activates potential energy into kinetic energy, right? Which is another word for action. And that is what transformation is. Now, just a few notes on how the mind works and how this training is going to work, right? So what we hear, we tend to forget. And what we see, we tend to remember. But what we do, we understand. So I invite you to participate. And I want to activate that willingness in yourself to realize that this can be fun. The more you participate, the more fun you have, the higher your vibration, right? The more you increase your vibratory rate, and the stronger your attractor field becomes, right? Which means that you'll be able to absorb and process the information much faster and turn it into wisdom. Now, I guarantee that if you participate and you give your full attention, your full energy to this training, to this activation, you will experience a shift. Okay. Now, when I present these concepts and you think to yourself, well, I've heard this before. You need to know this. You can hear information 1,000,000 times. You can read a book 1,000,000 times about a subject, and nothing will change until you what? Until you live it. Thank you. Now, is it okay if I tell you a little bit about why I created this program and why I teach this? It's very simple. When I awakened to consciousness, I was offered a vision and a mission. And upon accepting that mission, it was revealed that I will have all the support and guided support to fulfill this mission. And my mission is to teach and inspire others to live from their truer, higher self, as opposed to their fear-based, lower and false self. And that is what enlightenment or empowerment is all about. Now, do you believe in coincidence? I certainly don't. If you do, it's okay. But the reasons I structure these trainings in a way I do is very specific. Right? I was guided to teach people a very specific model about how the mind works, about who we really are, that leads to a state of empowerment. Okay, so I call this training Revelations of Inner Power or Inner Power Activation because it's life-changing. It is actually an awakening. And for some people, it's a reawakening because we're dealing with the very source of success or failure, the very source of mediocrity or greatness, the very source of inner peace or inner turmoil, the very source that determines whether you live a life of happiness or despair and depression. Now, everything started to change for me personally when I started to apply. What's the word? Apply. Thank you. This knowledge, right? My signal started to become clear, right? I became happy, truly happy, a lot more of the time. I had this laser focus. I have relentless inner drive. I have a type of magnetism, and it seems like the universe and everyone in it just wants to give me what I want, purely because I use the model that I'm about to teach you. And I've taught to many, many, many clients who've had the most incredible transformational experience. Now, recall at the beginning of the session, I asked if you want to be happier, right? Be more in love with your life, have more success, better health, more energy, more inner peace, more confidence. Now, if you said yes, why do you think you don't have all of these things, all of the success, all of the health, all of the energy, all of the happiness and confidence in everything that you actually say you want? Is it because of the economy? Is it because of the government? Is it because of your age or your lack of time or your partner or your family or your children? What is the cause? What do you think? The truth is that the cause is not any of these things. Nothing outside of you is the cause of any result in your life, contrary or to what many people believe. In fact, where do you think the cause of everything is? Do you think that it might be inside of you? Now, the very first law of consciousness I want to share with you is this. Your inner world creates your what? Your outer world. Okay? Now, everything in your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, meaning that everything you have or don't have in your life is a result of what? A result of who you are on the inside, right? So if you don't have everything you want in your life, who do you think is the cause? Now, if we're going to assume that maybe the only obstacle in your life is you, then what part of you is the cause of you not having or having everything you want? What part of you do you think is the main culprit here? Did you happen to say your mind? Well, if you did, you're correct. Introducing culprit number one, your mind. Your what? Remember, participation, your mind. Thank you. Your mind is the only reason that you don't have exactly what you say in your life. Now, your mind is an extremely powerful thing, right? And it can create the most amazing results in your life, but it can also create total havoc and prevent you from even coming close to being as loving, as healthy, as happy, or successful as you could be. Now, for this part of the training, we're going to focus only on that part of the mind, right? You see, most people go through life with the equivalent of a rocket ship strapped to their back and anchors placed firmly in the ground. Now, the more that you focus on external effort and being happy and doing things and grinding and hustling and working hard, the more resistance you experience emotionally and physically in your life, right? Do you relate to this? The harder you try, the more resistance you feel. Now, the biggest anchor that causes people to feel stuck in this way is the idea that they are their minds. Now, here is one of the biggest revelations to start to awaken your inner power. Are you ready for it? Here it comes. You are not your mind, and you are also not the thoughts projected by your mind, meaning you are not the voice in your head. What voice? That one, the voice you call your thinking, right? You are the one that can hear the voice. You are the one observing the thoughts, right? So you are not your mind. Now, notice that if you refer to it as my mind, right? There is a my and there is a mind. Yes or yes? So if the mind was the you, then who would be the my, right? And recognizing the difference here is absolutely life-changing, right? So I want to see where your mind is at right now in order to prepare for something very important that I'm about to share, right? Some of your minds might be thinking, wow, this is interesting and I want to learn more. Congratulations for being open. Keep it up. There's way more to come. Now, you might also be thinking, well, I already know this, right? And if that's the case, I have a word of caution for you. What do you think happens when you say, I know that? You stop listening. And when you stop listening, you stop learning. Now, let me ask you what's important here. Whether you know this or whether you are living it. Now, how do you know when you actually really know something? The answer is very simple. If you live it, you know it. If you don't live it, you might have heard of it, you might have read about it, you might probably talk about it like you actually are an expert at it, but you don't actually know it because you don't live it. By the way, which part of you might be telling you that you already know this? Your mind, right? Now pay attention, this is important. The mind that said, I know this, when you're actually not living it, is not to be trusted unless you're truly happy, in peak physical condition. Your life is filled with love and you're successful as you want to be, right? Now, if that's not the case, you want to pay really close attention because these revelations will change your life. It's changed mine and it has changed the lives of many, many others. Again, I want to urge you, don't believe a word I say just because I say it. Just be open and try it out in your own life and see for yourself. So, we've been working on this concept that you are not your mind, but you have a mind, right? And the mind is very powerful. And it can be most terrible tyrant in your life if you don't understand it, right? It can also be the most amazing servant, just like a genie in a lamp. But you need to know how it works before you can positively start to wield its power. Okay, so basically, your mind is a database of stored information, right? So in every moment of your waking life, based on what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, and what you feel, your mind goes into the database of stored information to create what? Meaning, right? Your mind is a meaning creating mechanism. So here's an example. You drive down the road, right, with your car, your scooter, your bicycle, whatever it is. Okay. And you see a child, a young child, on the side of the road. And your mind goes into its database of stored information to derive meaning from the experience, and it tells you what to do or not do about it by offering you thoughts about it. Okay, now, for some people, it might go relatively unnoticed, right? And there's a child, depending on what's in their database. For a social worker, for example, it might mean, where's the child's parents? Maybe I should stop and assess the situation and maybe contact the authorities, right? For someone else, maybe who has children, they might drive past the child and think of their own child and miss them and give them a phone call, right? Now, come back, bring all of your focus right here. This is life-changing. All of the action or inaction you take in your life, in every single moment, is determined by this meaning-creating mechanism as a response to your environment. The meaning-creating mechanism determines every single result in your life. Not just in your life, but in everyone else's life too. Are you with me? Okay. Now, bring your attention right back in. Okay. This is going to change the game. Reality is fundamentally neutral. Life has no inherent meaning built into it besides the meanings you give it. Okay, another way, the world is objective. It is what it is. But the meaning everyone gives the world can be radically different. Another way, so it really sinks in. Pay close attention. Nothing is anything until you make it something, and then it becomes what you make it. Another way. Nothing is anything until you make it what it is. This is a revelation. Nothing is anything until you make it what it is. Nothing has built-in meaning until you give it meaning. Stay with me. The meaning you give it will determine what it is to you, and actually only to you. So here comes another big one. Reality is personal. No one, not one in all the billions of people on the planet share the same reality. Okay? You might have heard this saying, what you see is what you get, but that's not complete. More accurately, the meaning you give to what you see is what you get. Okay, I hope you're still with me here. I know this might be a lot to chew, but you can go over this information and apply it, but just stay with me, okay? The implications of understanding this information, turning it into knowledge, is huge, okay? It will change your entire life. Now, there was a guy named Socrates, and he gave a teaching in only 2 words, a teaching in philosophy and spirituality. In 2 words. Do you know what it is? Okay, here goes. Know thyself, right? What are you? What are you not? How do you relate to yourself and the world around you? These are important questions, and this is what I'm sharing here with you in a very practical way, okay, that you can apply and get real world results. Okay, so quick recap. Nothing is anything until you make it what it is. Basically, everything is neutral until you give it meaning. And that meaning that you give it, or have given it based on the filing system of your mind, determines what you do what you don't do. It determines what actions you take, what actions you don't take. So basically, it determines everything in your life, all the results in your life. This is all based on the information stored in the database of your mind and the meaning you give to things. Okay, so here is another important question. How did we get all the information stored in our minds in the first place? Well, when we are born, we're like an empty vessel, like an empty hard drive. We have no information about how the world works until we are given information. Now, where does this information come from? Well, here's a shocker. It comes from other people. True or true? Your parents, caregivers, media, religion, friends, basically everyone around you. Okay, now, basically, all of these people created your database of information about the world. True or true? Here is another really important question. Is that information inherently true? Bottom line, we come in empty. We get filled up with other people's thoughts, beliefs, opinions, emotions, habits, patterns, ways of being, ways of doing, ways of not doing. True or true? Now, if you came in empty, it means that those people came in empty too. And they just poured their information into you. Okay? Now, you might not like the idea, but it's important that you recognize it for what it is. It's a natural process of life, originally designed to help you make sense of the world and fit into it. Okay? It's like a blueprint. Now, what you have received from others might not have been the most empowering information, but they went through the same process and they did the best that they could with what they had, right? Now, I'm repeating this information to help you realize that you are not your mind and you're not the thoughts that it produces. Now, who did all of the content in your mind come from? Other people. So your mind is not who you are. It's who you have learned to be. It's not the true self. It's a conditioned self, a conditioned identity. Okay, let's do a quick review. Basically, the data storage system that you go to make all the decisions in your life and give everything its meaning is filled with information that it got from other people and entities that are not you. Now, this is absolutely great news. Why? Because when you finally realize that your mind and the thoughts that it offers you come from other people and it's not you, then you can start to separate yourself from that voice in your head and not take it as gospel. And this gives you another very, very important gift. What is it? Choice. Once you started to create the distance between your true self and that voice in your head, and you know that it is not you, then you have a choice whether you want to believe that voice or not. And this is the beginning of freedom. Okay, now, well, why wouldn't I want to believe my own mind? Well, firstly, because it's filled up with other people's information. Secondly, what it says might not be really supportive of your happiness or your success. Well, why not? Well, let's look at it. Were those people really fully happy? Were they super successful? Were they truly healthy, absolutely loving and supportive? Were they in great physical condition? Well, if not, then you might want to reconsider listening to them. And again, that's what your mind is filled with. Other people's information. Meaning, when you're listening to your own mind, you're basically still listening to them. Now, if you are listening to the voice in your head, you are listening to a recording of information of people who may not have done all that well themselves. And this is not a judgment, it's a revelation. Now, the next revelation that will inspire you to question the validity of your thoughts is why it has been designed that way biologically. Was it designed to make you happy? Well, no. If it was, then everyone would be truly, fully happy. True or true? Is it designed to make you really successful? Well, no. If it was, then everyone would be fully successful, right? So, what was it designed to do? Can you guess? What is the purpose of this mind? Survival. Okay? You have this database filled with information for one single purpose, and that's to help you survive, not to be successful, not to be more peaceful, more loving, or happy, but to keep you alive. Okay? And when you get this, your life will never be the same again. Now, because your mind's job is to keep you alive, its focus is protection. Okay? So it has a bias for the negative because the positive is not threatening, right? Its job is to protect you. So it's not concerned with the positive. It's constantly focusing on the negative. It sees everything as danger and is on constant alert. Okay. That is why for most people, it takes effort to focus on the positive in your life. Ask yourself this. What would a good bodyguard focus on? The positive or the negative? Obviously, the negative, right? So your mind is designed to protect you when you are identified with your mind and you haven't created that separation. You live in worry, anxiety, depression, doubt, stress. Okay? Because the operating system of the bodyguard is based in fear. And because the mind believes that the only way it can keep you safe is if you listen to it, how does it do that? By making you believe it's you. So think of it as an antivirus software on a computer that takes over the entire operating system, and every few seconds it stops everything and it does a scan. So every few seconds, the bodyguard, the antivirus, stops everything and it does a scan. Okay. Now, that's great for finding viruses, but not so great for being productive, for being happy, for being successful. True or true? Now, you understand that the antivirus software is not the operating system, right? It was designed to protect the operating system, right? You are not the bodyguard. You are the one that the bodyguard is supposed to be protecting. Right now, this is the root of all self-sabotage, right? When one has been conditioned to believe that you are the thoughts or the voice in your head, you see problems arise again and again, and you think that one day, when your stars align, that eventually all my problems will go away. But because you're identified with the mind, and the mind is based in problems, it never stops. But let me tell you this. When you stop believing everything you think, and you learn to assign new meanings to different situations in your life in a way that is empowering, uplifting, and encouraging, you actually stop struggling. You actually stop encountering problems altogether. Good or good? Now, this is the process of awakening to consciousness, living consciously from choice in the present moment versus the programming and the habits of the past, the recording. Okay, now people say to me, well, you don't know my mind. I have this condition and I have that condition, and my mind is super loud and it's never shuts up. Welcome to the club. I just told you how this mind was created and what its job is. Okay, are you ready for the good news? Here it is. There are several methods that you can use to train your mind. And once it's tamed, there are even more powerful methods to train your mind to do what you want it to do. And train it, listen closely, to work for you instead of against you. Good or good? All right. Now, I want to give you one strategy from this training. In this training, they will place you in a very small percentage of people in the world. Are you ready? Here it is. Okay. It's 4 specific words to stop a negative and fear-based thought before it gets any what? Momentum. Before it gets any momentum. Why is that important? Right? Because everything is what? Energy, right? Everything is energy, and so are your thoughts. And if you notice, once your mind gets going on something, it very often keeps going and going and going and obsessing and obsessing. Can you relate to that? Now, here are the 4 specific words to stop a negative thought from getting any momentum. And you have to say them just the way I teach you, because it works for me and many, many, many others. Okay. The 4 words are this. Are you ready? Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. That's what you're going to say to your mind when a negative thought or fear-based thought comes up. Okay? Now, let's see how this works. You hear the voice, a thought, right? The conscious you determines who's talking here. Is it the overprotective bodyguard? Okay, well, how do you know? You check. How? By what it's saying. Does it sound like someone else is saying it to you? Does it sound like any sort of criticism, any sort of fear, any sort of negative or disempowering or self-sabotaging thought like, I can't, or I should do this thing, which I actually shouldn't do, right? Or just stay with what is familiar, stay in this pattern, okay? So if it's any of those things, then yes, that's the overprotective bodyguard doing what it's supposed to do. Now, what's your next step? You consciously choose if you want to entertain this thought. And if the thought is not empowering to you, you're going to use the 4 words and say to your mind, thank you for sharing. Just like you would do to an overprotective mother. Okay, now, then once you've used the forward phrase, then you consciously create a new, improved thought that is supportive and empowering. And you think that thought. Okay, here's an example. Let's have some ice cream. Okay, that's a thought. Let's have some ice cream. But I'm trying to get shredded. I want to be in shape. I want to be healthy. I want to be energized. So is this an empowering thought? Let's have ice cream? No. So you say to it, thank you for sharing. Then you insert a new, improved, and empowering thought. Like, I'm committed to getting shredded and look great. So I'm going to have an apple instead. And that's it. You go to the fridge, you pick up the apple, and you start eating it. Now, let's summarize. You consciously monitor your thoughts, and as soon as you notice the voice in your head say anything negative or fear-based or self-sabotaging or unsupportive, you simply say what? Thank you for sharing. And you choose a new, more empowering thought to replace it with. Now, you are allowed to do this as long as the thought police don't catch you. Just kidding. You better do this. Your happiness, your peace of mind, your success depends on it. It's called managing your mind. And if you don't manage your mind, well, you know that it's going to manage you. Now, since I mentioned the thought police, I want to give you the 3 laws of thought. Okay, are you ready? Pay attention. Law number 1, you have the autonomy over your thoughts, meaning you have the ability to control your thoughts. Law number 2, you have the ability to remove any thought from your mind. Law number 3, you have the ability to create and install any thought in your mind. Now, what does that mean for you? What does it mean for you? One word. Power, right? Your greatest power is in your ability to choose your own thoughts. Let me repeat that. Your greatest power is in your ability to choose your own thoughts. Now, this is so important. I want you to say it with me. Now, words are like energy. They are like magnets for attention. I want you to place your hand on your heart. I want you to feel your energy, feel your heartbeat, feel your own power. And while you're doing this, I want you to say after me, my greatest power is my ability to choose my own thoughts. Say it again. My greatest power is my ability to choose my own thoughts. Give yourself a high five and say, I'm powerful. Okay, now, while power over your mind comes from your higher self, it comes from your true self, your most conscious self, your most enlightened self, right? Conquering the fear-based self, the conditioned mind, is what all the masters teach about and do, like the samurai. The word samurai actually means to serve, not to chop people in half, right? So to conquer the mind, you can actually serve yourself and be of service to those around you, not by talking about it, but by living it and taking action in the real world. Okay, now, you are not your mind. You have the power to choose your own thoughts. What are the 4 words that you say to your mind when it offers you a fear-based, limiting thoughts? Thank you for sharing. Right. So what we've just covered is step 1, the activation of your inner power, realizing that the true self is the one that can observe the thoughts. The true self is the one that is conscious of what the mind is offering and then has choice whether to entertain that thought or not. Hope you enjoyed this video, this activation session, and I'll see you in the next one.